Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our third and final installment of our recent trip to Europe. As we said in episode 1 of our 3-part trilogy of our travel series, we started in Vienna, Austria. The second part, we described our trip through the Czech Republic. And now we're going to talk about Krakow, Poland. Isn't that right, Beth?
Yes.
You've been excited about this one.
I have been. I was super excited about Krakow in general, I think.
All right. Well, then,
I was just excited about Poland.
what drew you to Poland? Like, why are you so fascinated with Poland?
All of those World War II books and stories, so many of them. I mean, of course, a lot take place in Germany, but a lot took place in Poland and Hungary. And so I was just
Poland has a very sad history when it comes to the world wars.
Yeah, I think, and that was the other thing that I thought was so fascinating is culturally thinking about talking to a country that's been, taken over so many times by by the Soviets, by the Nazis, by different groups, and the impact that would have on the culture of the country. And anyway, I don't know. Sometimes you just get these places in your mind and you're fascinated with them. And that's the way I felt about Poland.
Well, I'm going to have to lean on you very heavily on this one.
Oh.
For one, I have kind of old man brain.
Yeah, you've already forgotten the entire trip.
I've already taken another trip since then. And even though this trip was just a couple of weeks ago, I do remember the highlights of Krakow. But you're really good about taking notes and the ability to be able to give us some details that maybe I don't pay close attention to. So when we left off on our last podcast, the Czech Republic podcast,
yes,
we had this amazing tour guide.
Yes, who works for an amazing company that actually emailed us.
They did. They were so mad at us.
Side trip tours. No, they were wonderful. And talk about a company that really cares about customer service. They emailed, first of all, to say they appreciated the podcast that we did. And it was interesting because I guess the person who runs the company is originally American, but has been living, I think it was Estonia for 15 years or so. But he was saying he likes, I think, seeing Europe through an American's eyes. And so we were able to give him that. Yay, us.
Look, if he really loved it, there's one of two things he can do.
What?
One, he could sponsor the podcast.
Oh, that's true. Yes. And just let me take side trips
and then
with all of his folks.
Yes. Let's throw in a tour.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll come back and then we will do podcasts. And we'll just do the tours connecting the cities.
We're not picky.
You could tell us which one you want us to do. But what I appreciated, and the reason I think they're so committed to customer service is, even as positive as that podcast was, I mentioned 1 or 2 small things. And so he asked about it, how can we be better?
Yeah.
And I just really appreciate that. People who care, and small businesses or companies that really care about the customer experience. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So our tour guide drove us right up to the door of our hotel.
And this time we were at, do you remember?
No, I don't.
It was a Hyatt place. You will see a trend in the places that we stayed, because this will go back if we ever do a points podcast about trying to use points and things. But we stayed at Hyatt-owned properties, which I really like.
I thought it was a trick question. No. I knew it was Hyatt. I didn't know if I had to remember the name of it.
Oh, yeah, right.
But so we checked in. She got us there around 6:00. So we just went right in. It was a nice hotel.
Yeah.
It wasn't nearly as nice as the one to be in.
Yeah. And that was the one thing I realized that I probably would have needed to reverse, because I set the bar pretty high at the Andaz. But it's a more expensive kind of brand that the Hyatt owns. But this hotel
it wasn't like a Red Roof Inn or something.
No, this
or
hotel was
6.
nice.
It was nice. It just wasn't.
And the people who worked there were really nice because that's when we met the front desk lady who gave us the tips on the places to eat and stuff. She's the one that we were like, what do we want to eat? And she's like,
yeah.
I'm not going to send you I'm not going to send you to a touristy place. I'm going to send you to get food from the country, Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she was great with that.
Yeah. So we checked in.
Well, one thing that was kind of stunning for us, we checked in, we go up, poor Joshy. Now, he was added to the trip later because originally it was just 2 of us. And I think I'd alluded to this on others, but a lot of European hotels are set up more for 2 people, not 3 or 4. And this hotel was great to accommodate us. I'm so thankful. But in accommodating us, Josh essentially had like sheets on a couch kind of thing to sleep on. And we had our bed, which was nice. But
he's 15. Who cares?
Yeah, he'll survive.
He's lucky we even brought him.
That's true. That's very true. So when we left to go, one of the things that was stunning to us, or we were perplexed by, I would say, as we're walking to get on our public transportation, which we were going to figure out as we go, is there's a long walkway from where the Hyatt Hotel is. We're right beside the soccer stadium, number one. You wanted to go to a soccer game, but that didn't work out.
Yeah,
so.
Whatever the big team is in Krakow, I don't even know what league they're in soccer-wise, but we were, right in the shadows.
Could have looked out the window and seen it and waved, yeah. But as we were walking to where the tram station was to get our public transportation to the restaurant, you walk down this long sidewalk, and on each side, it's like tall grass and wildflowers and stuff. And I feel like I'm not doing a good job describing this, but we kind of seen this a little bit driving through Poland. And I was like, this is interesting. It's kind of like if you decided to take public lands and park space and let it run a little wild, And so what we couldn't figure out initially is we were like, does Poland do this intentionally, or is this just an empty lot that people let it go? And it was really neat. But fast forward a little bit, we won't talk about who she was, but we met somebody later in our trip who's lived in Poland for years. And she said it's the way that they approach parks and the environment and environmental sustainability and things. It is truly this kind of, I don't want to say unkempt, because it's not like full of, you're not going to walk through their public parks and be tripping over weeds. It's not that, but it's more natural.
The public parks there the grass is much higher than here in the States.
Yeah, it's not like cut them.
The fields where people were walking and running, it was just, it didn't even look like a mowed path. It just looked like a path where people had walked so much they had worn it down. And it is very au natural in all of their green space.
And it's pretty and it's appealing. I don't want to say that it's not. It's just, it takes you aback. Again, if you're talking about what we've seen, I think we either see completely natural in America, like you're on a hike in a national park or a state park, and it's completely natural, or you see the well-manicured parks, like, down the street from us, Triad Park or something, where people are out mowing the grass to a very specific length, and, all of the bushes and things are manicured. So it was different. But we went on our recommendation from the person at the hotel, we rode public transportation down. We figured it out. Again, very similar. This is the situation in public transportation we liked, because it's kind of flat fee like. They have a zone of Krakow city proper, I guess you could say. And as long as you stay in that zone, you can buy like a ticket for 20 minutes or 40 minutes, or you can buy, like, of course, passes for multiple days.
What I liked about it was just simple numbers.
Yeah.
You just look for the number 6. Look for the number 8.
Yeah.
Where other ones, you had to pay attention to actual names, which was a little bit more difficult if you weren't from that area.
So we'd be like, oh, we're on the number 6. That's the one we're getting on. And we had this app. It was like Jackadoo or something, I think is the name of it. I could put a link in later that would tell you part of the schedules. But you just pay this flat amount. And I did it on the app. And so you could buy the tickets. We did see some people trying to do it once they got on board, but I'd read you had to have correct change. And again, this was our third country, third currency. We didn't exchange a lot of money or anything. So you just download the app. You put in your ticket. So we knew where we were going was less than 20 minutes. So I purchased 3 tickets that were very inexpensive. What did it end up being like for 3 tickets for 20 minutes? Like $3 or something. It might have been. Yeah,
public transportation is so cheap.
Yeah, it was very inexpensive. And then when you got online to validate the ticket, because at that point you've purchased it, but they have to know that you're actually using it. There's a QR code on all of the trams, and so I just held up the app to the QR code, and it would start a little timer counting down on your phone, so you knew too if you were about to run out. Which we never had that problem, but if we had gone somewhere that was going to end up taking more than 20 minutes, it would have been very easy to see that and to know. So
anyway, again, there's nobody on these trains checking.
We didn't.
You could risk it and jump on, jump off.
But there are horror stories of people who did.
Yeah, I mean, if they catch you, you're in big trouble.
Because you're going to pay a lot in a fine.
Right,
yeah.
But we
didn't encounter that, but we also paid every time. And it's so simple and inexpensive. So we ended up at the place. It was kind of down by the water. There was this great river and bridge that we could walk across, and they had some like kind of sculpture things on the bridge, and the sun was setting and it was beautiful. But the restaurant we went to, there's no way I will ever be able to pronounce it. It's spelled something like Chinkalnia. But again, it is food from Georgia, the country. And this is where Josh ordered how do I spell this? Because I, again, can't say it. Khinkali. I would compare it to maybe Chinese dumplings or pierogies or something. I don't know. I mean, they're like these like soft things filled with broth and meat. But what was so interesting.
It looks like some type of ravioli.
Kind of, but bigger and not in sauce. And you eat it with your hands. But what I loved about it was they gave you a laminated instruction sheet. It was laminated, and it's like how to eat it. And it's got like Part 1, you order it. So they really dumbed this down for the people like us. Part 2, do not use a knife and fork. And forget about the sauces is like what they say. So anyway, they take you through these steps. They tell you how to take a bite, how to basically enjoy the broth. Let's
just face it. It's all in English. They just assume Americans are idiots.
They were just like,
they've seen us eat those things so poorly. They literally had to give us a cartoon menu to show us how to do it. This.
Yeah, because they're probably like seeing people like, we're like, can I get a steak knife for this? Or I don't know. Who knows what or trying to like share it, people who are like sharing food to watch the rate or something. Like, can I cut this in half? But Josh loved them. He thought they were fabulous. And you got I got this cheese thing that's also a more traditional dish that was kind of like pizza, but not really. I don't know how to describe it, like cheesy bread. And then yours, I just know you really liked it. Yours had more meat and stuff in it. It was kind of, and then we had baklava for dessert. Yeah.
Gun to my head, I couldn't have told you what I ate.
Well, there you go. Anyway, so that was just we won't talk about every meal we ate and what it was so great, but like that one was just so interesting because again, very unique. And I love too that she had sent us, it was a really pretty area, but it wasn't in the center of town, like a tourist attraction. And again, not that some of those places are bad, but it was just cool. She was like, this is my favorite place and this is where I go all the time. And so I really appreciated her doing that for us.
It was more towards, she said, the Jewish square versus the
historic, the old town. Yeah. But it was beautiful there, and seeing those bridges and stuff was really cool. So that was kind of that. And then, by that time we're exhausted. And so we've got to make it back to our place, and we do our public transportation back and walk back to our hotel. And, that was when we also attempted to do a podcast that didn't work out so well because we were trying to do it on our phones. But we woke up the next morning and we had paid to have the breakfast included. So they had a lot of different food and had sauerkraut juice and beet juice, along with more traditional juices such as orange juice. But I did feel compelled to try these. The beet juice and the sauerkraut juice probably taste about exactly like you think they would. You know, like some people get the pickles and drink the pickle juice. The sauerkraut juice, I think literally they take the sauerkraut and like just hold it in the jar and pour the juice out, you know? So that was interesting.
See, it's funny for me. I can be adventurous with food. Like I'll eat something. I have no idea what it is. But when it comes to drinking something,
You're not going to do it?
No. If you couldn't have paid me to drink a sauerkraut juice or beet juice or anything else. Like, just give me orange juice or water or coffee. Like, I couldn't do it. I just have this thing.
Well, and they had some interesting things, like we didn't eat the salad for breakfast, but you know, they had the little salad bar area. Yeah. And then they had some of the more traditional things like we've seen in the other places with the meats and the cheeses. And then they had some more British breakfast, I guess, like scrambled eggs and stuff. So you didn't have to have the different stuff, but I was like, well, while there, I might as well try it. So we did do that. And that morning, true to us, what does everybody think the first thing we do is? We do one of our walking tours. That's what we had signed up for.
Let's be fair. You did a walking tour and drug Josh and I along with it.
Well,
that's not something Josh and I would have chosen.
You were more awake, and after the fact, you felt like you learned things, right? Yeah. Our tour guide was really fun. He's one of the ones we talked about a little bit ago, and the other podcast about that said they have to go through training and get a certificate and take a test and everything so that you really know your facts. But they met around what I guess would have been the old wall, kind of around the old city. That's where we met to start our tour. And the city was kind of just waking up at that point. But really quick before the tour started, I ran by a McDonald's cafe. And it may be one of the most bougie McDonald's I've ever seen in my life. It had it was this beautiful brick historic building with these nice kind of like trendy lights hanging down and these like fancy chairs and stuff. It was just bizarre. It was like being in an alternate reality to see this really nice McDonald's cafe. But in this Old Town area, very similar to some of the other cities we've talked about, you know, the cobblestone or the stone streets, part of the wall that goes around, you know, and he introduced us to the buildings and things, and he was just a fun guy. But one of our things he did that I got really excited about, because I was like, oh, Maria's going to hear about this. He's like, I'm going to take you to this college that's here, and they're going to put on a show, kind of like the Muppets. That show was nothing like the Muppets.
Beth was sitting there with her phone out, ready to video, and she just thought it was going to be the greatest thing you ever seen.
Yeah, I'm expecting hand puppets, you know. I'm expecting like some really big stuff. And it's literally like just this little thing that a little door opens, and it's almost like if you have one of those clocks where the stuff just spins around in a circle. It's just
a cuckoo clock with large animatronics that aren't even that great.
Yeah. So we watched.
It reminded me of the time Beth and I, our first trip ever to Europe, we went with a tour company. And remember?
It was Trafalgar or however you say that. And we went, and we'd never been to Europe. And this is back in the day before you had Google Translate and stuff. So we were like, we need to do a tour company. And that tour got talked up, the Panoramica. It was in Switzerland.
Yes.
And he just kept telling us.
You got to go to the Panoramica. Yes. We're going to go to the Panoramica.
It's going to wow you.
You would have thought it was the 8th wonder of the world.
Yes. And it was
the biggest, it was the 8th biggest letdown in the world.
Yeah, we were just kind of like, you're in Switzerland, you know, in Lucerne or wherever, and you've got all these mountains and stuff, and then you like
you're in this building with just like wallpaper of the mountains.
Yes.
It was like, and it just turned around you, so you're just standing there looking like,
it was so
okay,
bizarre.
I could just walk out the door and see something better.
Yeah. But the thing I liked about this tour, once we did that, is afterwards I ran and I got a lemonade. And this is one of the things that came back with me. I actually just did this the other night. I got my sparkling water and put some fresh frozen fruit in it just to feel a little more European. But the lemonade I brought back to Josh to have, I got a coffee, but it was not very sweet. But definitely sweeter than just putting lemon in water, but had like, again, the flowers and the herbs and all that stuff coming out of it. It was just so different and just pretty. I mean, the presentation they have, even with just their lemonade, you're like, whoa, it's really cool. But we did, as we were doing the tour, like all these tours, he told us the really neat places to go and the stuff we might want to go back and see. He told us a lot of the history, which helped inform some of the things we did later. But he also threw in some fun things, like you go through this little indoor marketplace where people are selling all sorts of stuff. We didn't shop there. But then he shows us this like knife hanging up on a wall and tells us like this legend about the knife and stuff. And so I just like those little tidbits culturally. I just think it makes it more fun when you're learning, because sometimes these stories that the people tell, just like they told us a story about the Krakow dragon, we can talk about that, but it just gives you an idea of the culture and kind of what they were trying to pass down. But so we did our walking tour and got to see the big city square, the old town square, which is massive. Mm-hmm. It is so big, that square is, even filled with people. It's just so
like
big.
Multiple football fields.
Yeah, like it's just it's huge. And then we kind of ended that tour. He walked us down a few streets and we ended up at this palace as well that you could stay at and that I had read about. And so we decided that we would go at, it's called the W-A-W-E-L Castle. That's where we ended. And this castle was great, but again, if they wanted to reach out to me to know what they could do better, I could definitely tell them. It was extremely confusing because you go in and it's this massive castle. So, I mean, I can't describe how big it is. It's a palace.
It's just like, gigantic.
Yeah. And it has inside of it a cathedral, and then it has like maybe the king and queen's previous chambers, and then it's got like the crypt, and then it has a big bell, and it has an art museum. So it's got all these things. But what's confusing is they aren't connect. I don't know if they're under different ownership or what, because like we got in line for one and I was like, okay, I think we want to go into the cathedral. We have this much time. This is what we think we want to see. And they're like, oh, well, no, you have to go over outside of this building to buy those tickets. And I had read online, people were saying it was confusing. So that was a little, and again, it's not insurmountable. You figure it out. But, I just wasn't understanding like who was selling what and where you buy each thing and kind of what you're seeing and how long each thing takes. But we had done a little research and decided to do the cathedral. That was the royal family's cathedral. So even though it was stunning and beautiful compared to so many of the other cathedrals, it was much smaller because it was just for the royal family. It wasn't for, all the other people. And they didn't really allow pictures and things in there, but it was stunning. I mean, it was beautiful.
Didn't they say and people could rent it out for weddings?
Yeah, which is just crazy to think about.
How much you have to pay for that.
I know. And so we went in, we toured that. And then as part of the cathedral, that's when we were able to see the large bell and the crypt. And so you walked through the cathedral and then you went up to a bunch of stairs. And again, I just love in some ways, it makes me sad how litigious, I guess, and as a lawyer, I say this, but how litigious Americans are, because in this one, when you were going up, it's just these narrow steps. It would be like in my grandma's house going to the
between
attic.
Beams, and it's just, there's no safety there at all.
Yeah. And it's like you climb up all of this and they've got a few things you can read as you go, and it's really narrow and skinny stairs. And I was thinking, man, the getting down is going to be hard. But then they have this massive bell up there that you can get a picture of. And I think, didn't they say it takes 12 people?
Yeah, 12 people to ring it.
To ring the bell, if that gives you any scale for how big it is. And you can look out and see some great views of Krakow, which is cool. So we did that. And then we went down to the crypt, which was really interesting because it's a lot of different rooms, I guess you would say, in the crypt with a lot of different, people that are buried there or what have you. But they had these great interactive kind of iPad things. So if you wanted to know what you were looking at some point, you could look and they would be like, oh, this is Mike, and he was this old and this was his life story. And so it was just kind of neat to have that interactive part to look at it. And it was just something different to be sort of underground and to see something like that and do that. So and then we decided too, by that point in time, we were starving. But we had learned about the Krakow dragon, which I was convinced that we had to see before we left, but we can circle back to that. And so we went and had lunch, and Mike and I had creme brulee toast that the sauce kind of just went over it. It was so good. Anyway, after that, we decided that we were going to continue to explore. And so there's, I think it's called St. Albert's Church. They had an underground tour. It only ended up being about $3 American. And because what we learned on our above ground tour was that they were doing some work in the city and they accidentally discovered an entire city under the ground, like medieval city. And it's just mind blowing. Like the entire city now, like big enough that I guess if you're underground, a person, I don't know how many feet it was, but you can see if you go into this church, and it's really, you're paying $3. You just go down the stairs under this church and it's just this room, and you can kind of see the rock layers and see and this year, this is where the city was. And this year it was here. And they had some artifacts and things they found. So it wasn't like anything that you're like, oh my gosh, this just blew me away. But it was neat and inexpensive to do. And then we went to St. Mary's Basilica, which is just stunning. That's the one, Mike, that had the blue ceiling and the gold stars. And Mike was impressed there because I pulled out my scarf, because I remembered
covering the shoulders.
Yeah. So we explored that. And then once we had done all of that, Mike wanted to try to find a comic book shop because he'd been so inspired by what had happened in the Czech Republic that he was like, oh, I'm going to try to do this. So we go in search of this one store. And that's where Josh got a pretzel. But we get to that store, and that had to be the most helpful man there at that store that has ever not had anything purchased. But we had stopped in the first store first.
We went to a used bookstore, and they had some comics there that were, Polish Spider-Man comics from the 90s.
And it wasn't like it was a comic. It just had they may have had, a box or two of comics. The rest of it was really old books. Yeah.
So, we left there. I didn't buy any. I was like, I'll get some newer stuff or whatever. And so we hiked all the way down to a real comic book store. That's all they sell.
That's all they had.
And, asked the guy about, they had plenty of American
in
comics.
English comics. Yeah.
And then some Polish stuff, I think, in maybe DC or some other brands, but not Marvel. And he was like, Marvel only produced Polish comic books for this small few year period in the 90s.
Yeah.
So he was like, if you can find those, they're worth a lot. So I was like, all right, guess we're going back.
But he was so nice.
He was so helpful, so nice.
They were having a comic book convention the day we were leaving, so we wouldn't be able to go. But he was just, again, for the man who didn't sell you anything, he was so nice.
I think Josh and I both bought something there.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Because
yeah, because he was
he was
nice.
so nice.
Yeah.
I felt guilty.
Yeah, but he was great.
And
yeah.
so I went back to that store and picked up a couple of comics there. And so, so I ended up, as a comic book collector. That was fun. I got comics in all 3 countries and in their native languages. And
which is
that was
really
cool.
neat.
Yeah.
And then we decided we would do one last thing. And that was after we'd heard about the underground, we thought that would be super cool. And it was this underground museum. I don't know what the official name is, but trust me, but it was very hard to find where to buy the tickets. I wandered around and people kept pointing me to a different place. But then it's hidden underground. So, it's like it's a top secret door, it felt like. But
it felt like a speakeasy museum.
Yeah, it's like you got to know the password to get a ticket and get in. But it had it was more than just like the underground, like showing where the rocks were. There was a lot of that. So I think somebody who really loves like archaeology or like studying those types of things would be fascinated.
Well, and they had tons of stuff in that museum underground that they had found. Artifacts and jewelry and
they learned so much about the medieval world, that time period, because of that stuff, because they found textiles. And so they learned about, I guess, the fabrics people were using in textile making. They found, they had a lot of information on trade routes that used to exist and why Krakow was important. And then you just got a glimpse of that type of life. And it was like a city under the city. But for us, it was really cool. But I don't know that I would say it was a must-do kind of thing, at least not for us. It was really neat seeing some of the pictures and being like, oh my gosh, this is what, context-wise, we're under the square right now kind of thing. And so that was neat to see. And the history was interesting, but in some ways it was almost like it was big and it was a lot. And it's like, there's only so much of that you can see and absorb, if that makes sense. Yeah.
I thought it was pretty boring.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the weakest of all the museums we visited in the 3 countries. But it wasn't bad. I mean, it was still really well done.
Yeah. But I think it's just that everything we had seen, by comparison, it's almost like we said with Josh and the hotels. If you go to the best hotel first, everything else might pale in comparison. But it was still good. And then we went that night and we had ramen and went to bed so that we could do our next day extravaganza. So the next day we woke up and we had to figure out how we were going to get to Auschwitz. And that was another thing. There were a lot of things that we were spontaneous about on this trip. I'd read online people talking about things you have to buy in advance. Auschwitz tickets are things you do need to buy in advance. The other thing I had read online, and I would caution people about because I didn't do it, so I don't know. We were stressed about getting there because we did not book with a tour company. We bought the tickets directly from Auschwitz, from the museum there online. Some people book with tour companies, but one thing that happened is a lot of people would get online on these forums and they'd be like, my tour company just canceled or my tour company didn't really buy the tickets. So if you use a tour company, I think you just have to be really careful. But the trains can get you there. Did we use Uber or Bolt at this point? They're the same, so just a different.
We may have used Bolt, I think, to get there.
Yeah, but we decided to do that because it was going to take over an hour, regardless of how we got there. And I wanted, even though our tickets weren't until noon, I had read that you need to be there by 11:30 to get through security and everything. So by the time you're backing all that out from having breakfast, I just didn't want to take a chance on missing a train or getting confused or doing something wrong. So we got there, and let me tell you, that place was packed.
And if you've never used Bolt, it's similar to Lyft and Uber here in the States, where if it's your first time using it, they give you discounts for your first.
Yeah.
So for us, we got 50% off our first 5 rides on Bolt.
Yeah.
And
so we used it. I think the entire time.
And used up all 5, and it saved us a lot of money.
Right.
And was great transportation.
And again, too, and I also get with the public transportation, some people might be like, well, why would you ever use Bolt? Well, sometimes if you're really stressed about getting somewhere like that, but also because we were paying for 3 people, if you start factoring in the trains and stuff, because we had that discount, it wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. But when we got to Auschwitz, it was a lot of people there. And you go in and you show them your tickets, you go through security, you have to have a form of ID. Which this is the only place that we went that we had to show like it doesn't have to be a passport, but it's a driver's license or something. You had to show that. And then they gave you a sticker because we had registered, because you register in advance, and we'd registered for like the 3.5-hour tour in English. And there was like a longer 6-something hour tour, but I think that would have been completely overwhelming for us. It was started right on time. They gave us, they gave us like headphones and this little thing around our neck so that even though there were probably how many people in our group? 30 people. Yeah. It was like a big group. So even though if you're in the back, you could hear.
So the tour guide speaking. They were speaking into a mic and everybody could hear it.
Yeah. And so, that was just, wow. This for me was the second camp I'd been to. For you and Josh, the first. So before I talk about anything, just any thoughts on?
It just felt surreal to be in a place that you read so much about.
Yeah.
And Beth and I had the opportunity a few years ago when we went to France to go to Normandy. Mm-hmm. And that's what when I think of at least the U.S. history of World War II, and what you read about. 2 of the top 5, if not the top 3 things you read about is Auschwitz and Normandy.
Right, yeah.
And I was like, I've had the opportunity now to visit both.
Right.
And both just kind of had this real surreal, eerie feeling. And
because like if you go to Normandy, it's so big.
Yeah.
The beach is like,
the cliff.
Yeah, you're just like, and I think that was part of Auschwitz, like the first part that we were at, it was, again, massive. So you're just kind of trying to think through.
Well, and what took me, I was blown away with it was so well kept.
Yes.
I think the Nazis fell so fast.
Yeah.
By the time the war ended.
Right. They weren't able to destroy it.
Yeah, because I know they would have destroyed that.
Yeah.
And Poland did a great job of keeping everything intact. And so all the houses, like I would say houses, all the barracks, or whatever you want to call them, all the buildings are still there. The stuff you read about where that spot in between the 2 barracks where they would murder a bunch of people.
Yeah.
It's there. And, they take you inside and you see, all these shoes, and they found, and then all the however many pounds of hair, and just all this.
You cannot comprehend the hair. Like the room you walk into with the hair, and then they tell you what they use the hair for, or the shoes. It's not like it's like, oh, you go and there's one glass partition and there's a bunch of shoes. It's like shoes upon shoes upon shoes and baby shoes, and just. I think too, the 2 of the things, there's one room that's just filled with everybody's like dishes and stuff. And then another room that's got the suitcases, and you can see, where the people had written like a name or an address or something, because they really thought, they were going to get those things back.
Yeah. And the whole place is surrounded still with the original fencing, barbed wire,
the towers that you see, like where the
guards would sit.
Yeah.
It feels like you're in a movie set.
It does.
Because they've kept it so well preserved. And it was incredible. And then we got on the train.
Well, before you do that, they did a good job, though, I think, 2 other things 3 other things maybe. They intertwined stories with it. So they had lots of pictures of individuals. And so they'd pick 1 or 2 and they would tell you their story. And I won't go into detail here, but even they had like a a model that showed how the gas chamber system worked. And I think it's just surreal. It's wrong in so many ways, but to see something that was so like almost like an assembly line and the way they designed it and the way that it operated. I think that was just, I mean, you just can't put words, but they did a very good job of, you could take pictures in some places. In some places they would say, please be quiet or solemn to respect the people that were here. And they would ask for no pictures. Everybody on our tour was very respectful. And I just think that given the heaviness of what you're seeing, I don't know how they could have done much better. I did read some people criticize that it almost was too sterile, because too clean, too preserved, but I think that it's accessible for anybody to see. And I think it's one of those things that, was it fun? No. Do we all need to see it and remember? Yeah. I mean, I think like it's just something that we need to see to know, and not just to learning just about all the other people persecuted and that were hurt, and then the brave stories of the people. But there were two parts to it too, because you went over to another section, which was just like in the movies with the train tracks and a train car still sitting there. And when we went to that part,
that's where they put you on another bus.
Yeah.
And they take you by tour bus over to the big fields, which, you see a lot in the movies, and where the actual gas chambers were. And
it was weird because it looked exactly like what you see in the movies, like the track. But what was so strange was there were wildflowers growing. There was nature, to the point, at one point, there was a fox, and we saw a fox and the tall grass there. And so it was beautiful, but it was eerie, because you're just like, this is really pretty, like the way it looked, but then just, I don't know, there's just a heaviness, I feel like there. And I'd read so many books about the way people lived in the camps, and it would talk about, like, sometimes how cold it would be in the winter or how hot in the summer. And so we went into one and saw how dark it was and how many people would have been on the beds. So it was just, it made me think too, because I remember I even asked our tour guide, I went up at one point, because the Germans kept meticulous records, and they had every person that came through, they had 3 pictures of them. They had like a direct face on, a profile, and like another kind of sideways looking picture. And I even asked her, why on earth did they keep, records like that? And she said they still don't know. Maybe it was to show superiors what they were doing or something. But just, again, so many things to ponder and so many questions from all that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously one of the biggest atrocities in human history, but probably the most well documented, in that the people doing it kept their own notes.
Yeah, and who else would? Most people want to hide those things, not like have detailed notes and photographic evidence and things of what happened. It was just, so again, it's a somber day. It's a day, but I think it's worth it. And I think, and we asked Joshua about it, and I mean, it hit him, as it would. And they even say, I think they say they don't advise people under 14 to come. And I can definitely see why.
Yeah.
So.
Or Nazis.
Yeah. Well,
that was one of the things I was reading. It was because we were worried about attire.
Yeah.
Like, how do you dress?
Yeah.
And, it was like, dress however you want. Just do not wear a swastika.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who would do that?
Exactly. Who would show up? Yeah.
It was just, I'm sure people have or tried.
Right.
But it was anything at all, and it was swastika, and it was a few other little things, but it was all German related, pro, Third Reich, Hitler, SS type stuff.
Don't have that. But otherwise, because I think a lot of people were like, well, do I need to wear a skirt or cover my shoulders and stuff? And they didn't have rules like that. It was just, don't have that.
Yeah, because I wore shorts and a t-shirt. No, everyone did. You know?
Because it was hot.
So that part, you can wear what you want there. But, obviously you can't wear offensive stuff.
Yeah.
And, and they're, they're very serious. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like as a tour guide, that's one of the reasons it felt to me somber and heavy, is she was very somber and heavy and very just,
I don't know. Her presence was just, it treated what you were seeing with the amount of seriousness and heaviness that it should be treated.
She didn't crack a smile.
No, she didn't. And she was great. She was knowledgeable. Her English was great. It was a great tour. Yeah. So, but definitely, we needed to grab something to eat, and we found a little small place afterwards before we went back and had pierogies, which was really neat, and just had the sweetest waitress and stuff there that was so helpful
little
and good.
Mom and pop place.
Yeah, it was just this small little place. And then we got the train back. So we got that experience of being on the train. And then we ended up in, I guess, an area that I think it was described as the former ghetto. And it was near where Schindler's List and all of that was filmed. You can actually go see, the Schindler Museum and there's
the Oscar Schindler ceramic factory, which the movie is based on, is there in Krakow, and it's now a museum.
Right.
And you can go tour it and see that. We didn't have time.
We ran out of time to do all these things.
It out.
Yeah.
But even that was kind of wild to be in the shadows of
the things, again, you've read about or learned about. But it was strange because this section of town was really trendy. It was it seemed like where the old town was the history and the touristy part. This is the trendy place that all the young hipsters are going out to eat dinner and have drinks and stuff. But in the midst of it, they did have some good things on the walls that you could read.
What we needed was a cough button right there. We're not that fancy yet, so we didn't have a cough button to be able to hit the mute. So
sorry, I don't know. It was allergies, I guess. But anyway, so they had stuff you could read. So we did that, and then I'd read that one thing you needed to do in Krakow was a vodka tasting. So we found this place called Wodka, Wodka, and we went in there and just did they had. How many vodkas on there? 1,000. I don't know. It wasn't that many, but it was so many. And you could do a little flight, and you chose a real sweet one, and I chose the traditional one. Mm-hmm. So that was just a neat experience, just again to try something different in that culture. And then that was kind of it for the night. We didn't have a lot of time there because it's a day.
Yeah, it's a day to go to Auschwitz.
Because it's over an hour traveling time, and then it takes time to go through. And then our final day, we kind of agonized over what to do, but we'd read a lot about the salt mine, and I just read it was great and it was different. And it's a short little ride out of town. You can do public transportation or a boat. And very similar, we had bought our tickets online to reserve a spot. But when I say, so I did do enough planning to buy those the night before. But I wasn't, but the Auschwitz tickets I bought months before, way before. So we got there, same kind of thing. They had the little headphones and stuff and the speaker thing for our tour guide, and she was great and fun, and I didn't know a lot about it. I'd seen one or two pictures, read some reviews. So we go in, and it's this massive salt mine that is still operating. And what they do is they kind of start off, first of all, you go down, how many steps was it?
I don't even remember. You go down a bunch.
Hundreds of steps you go down. And then once you get down to a certain level, they kind of start off with in the medieval times when this is what it would have been like. And this is the level they were at when the first people discovered the salt here. And we were in a part where the salt was 99% pure. And she talked about how valuable the salt was to the king and everyone. There was one part where she said we could lick the wall Josh said he licked the wall. I hope he didn't, but anyway, I don't know. But as the way they had this mine designed is, it was kind of like taking you through time and the history of salt mining. So like medieval people, they just discovered this. They didn't know how to mine salt. So they even talked about like certain gases that might be released into the mine and, methods they had, or eventually when they brought horses down to live in the mine. So there were men who stayed down in the mine with the horses, and how the horses were owned by the kings, and they had demonstrations of how you would get things up, but you're just walking through these different parts. But one thing we were stunned by, you don't want metal in there. So there was so much wood, like in the parts that would kind of hold up the walls that you walk through. And that was because the king, sometimes when he sold salt, got paid in wood and they had, so you had wood craftsmen who would put the wood together with fittings, so there's no metal pieces and stuff. And then we started to see a few things like, we saw a portion that was still working. They just showed us where that was, a still working mine. And we started to see a few carvings that people did. And they said that the carvings that were done, none of the people that do them are like professional artists or anything. They're people who worked there. And we walked through a little cathedral they had, and they were like, they realized that wasn't sufficient. And the jaw-dropping thing they take you in, now I know you've got to remember this, so you can talk a minute about that, is when you first walk in the Cathedral of Salt.
Yeah, it's massive. It is a massive room, and you're just surrounded by carvings of the life of Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable what
carvings and salt.
Yeah, carvings and what
the chandeliers
what I would
are
call
salt.
An amateur. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like these weren't Van Gogh's not going down there carving.
Yes,
you know, like
right.
Michelangelo's not going there carving this stuff
yeah.
up. Like these are workers in the salt mine that took their time, their vision, and carved out the story of Jesus and throughout in multiple segments in this giant room. The room's so big they had concession stands.
Yes,
I mean,
and people
big.
can get married there. And I mean, I don't even know how far underground we were. It's like way
Hundreds of feet.
Yeah, and it was just, I mean, literally the chandeliers and stuff are like salt, and it is just. There are no words, and it's another thing, you know, I've had so many things on different trips that you try to take a picture that captures it, and you just can't. You can't. With some of those things, same thing with Auschwitz. You know, there's some of the things it's just being there and feeling it and see like a picture, a video. It just can't capture the essence of being there. Mm-hmm. But I felt like we learned so much about the history of salt and about like just the history in general, but then seeing something that's stunning was just really neat. And then when we got to come up, we had quite the crazy elevator ride. They don't make you come up like 800 steps, but okay, it was almost like a double-decker elevator, and we were on the top floor of the elevator, and like, you want to talk about no personal space? They put us in there, and it's kind of like this metal gate thing or whatever. We can barely move, you know, and it's like going up. And we were joking that I was going to call Maria and tell her we rode the real Tower of Terror or whatever, like the one at Disney, because it was
if you've got personal
crazy.
space issues or claustrophobic, you can't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, they took probably a 10-person elevator and put 15 people on it.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Which they have to. There's a ton of people there.
There's so many people going to tour it.
You got to get them up.
And that's why I would get at least a day before, and they have timed entry tickets. So then we left there, and I really wanted to get back to that. I wanted to see a synagogue while we were there, and a lot of things were closed. This was Saturday, and we were going to have to get to the airport that night. And so I read that the old synagogue was open, and it actually is now like a museum. And so we were able to go into the old synagogue, and it had a lot of like, again, history of like the Jewish faith and stuff. The one thing I would have liked on that. Thank goodness there was a man there who looked like he knew his stuff so I could ask him. But I was interested in the religious faith aspect of like, what am I seeing? Like, what's this big thing in the middle that's got the metal? And is this thing over here where the Torah was? You know, I thought I'd pieced together what the stuff was, but I wasn't quite sure. So I have no shame. So I just went up to that man and said, hey, do you speak English? Do you know what this is? And asked him just so I could more fully know that, because so much of it was like history and things, which was also really interesting. But I probably went into that synagogue with like a different, intention or what I was looking for than some people do. And then we ate at this great Mediterranean place and had amazing hummus and pitas and kebabs. And that's where also we made our comments. Another European tidbit. They love their sparkling water, and you don't do a lot of ice with your water. But I'd made that note to myself. I don't know if we'd already said that. Then as our last little bit, there was a cool church that Mike says he's the risk taker, but the gate looked open. So I kind of snuck in to see what it looked like. And then we ended at the castle again to see the Krakow dragon breathe fire. So basically there's a legend that a dragon lived under the castle, and they had a whole story too about somebody fighting the dragon, a mythology associated with it. But they have a statue of a dragon, and it breathes fire every 15 minutes. So this is kind of like that time at the Columbus Zoo when I insisted we had to walk all the way across the zoo to see the koala eat. I think y'all were a little underwhelmed.
Yeah, you built this up. You had your phone out ready to video it. I'm like, all right, this is this giant statue of this dragon is going to snort fire for a while. It may have lasted 1 second. And I was like, is that it? And everybody just walked away.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was a crowd of 100 people sitting there staring at it. And in 1 second, no more than 1 second, it was over.
The fire was done. But I got to see it because otherwise I would have gone home and been like, oh, I didn't get to see the dragon. Because, I love dragons. And we got a picture there. And then we had to make our way to the airport. 1 or 2 tidbits on that, the Krakow airport. We had held our stuff at the hotel and wanted to make sure, of course, we're not late because, most airports now are like, if it's an international flight or whatever, get there 3 hours early or something. So we got there way early because we'd done as much as we could in that amount of time. At this point, it's like I think it's like 4 p.m. And so we're like, we'll make our way there. Our flight's like at 7:30. Well, the airline we were flying, how do you say it? Lufthansa or something? I can't remember. It's a common airline. I've flown them before. But we got there that early, but we actually needed to check a bag this time because one thing I do when I pack on these trips is I make everybody carry on, but then I take an extra bag inside the bags. So if we buy things or like we aren't as concerned on the way home, we can check a bag. So we were checking one of the bags, and they do not let you they don't tell you where to check the bag. It's not like in the States where you just go up to the United Airlines and you check your bag. This, they have to display on this screen. They have to say, for this flight, check your bag at this like carousel 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
And you have to wait. You can't go check it before then. And they did it exactly 2 hours before. So we could have been there 6 hours early or exactly 2 hours. It wouldn't have mattered because you can't check your bag until 2 hours before, which then meant we couldn't go through security until then and everything. And we made it on time. It ended up not being a big deal, but that was just a quirk. And I think that's really that airline because a lot of the other airlines, every other airline had where and when you check the bag earlier than they did. But, we did a little flight hop from Krakow to Frankfurt, Germany, because the flights from Krakow to the East Coast were not only very expensive, but some were going to have so many layovers and the whole thing was going to take like 30 hours. So when I planned the trip, I decided we'd be better served to just fly to Frankfurt the night before stay in a hotel, and then get up early and make it to the airport in Frankfurt to come home. Because then we flew to Chicago, and it was only 11 hours or something. I don't know. But compared to a full day of 30 hours of flying. So we did that. When we got to Frankfurt, this is when I realized that I guess I have more energy than most people, because it's like 9:30 and like, Josh, you can make this 4 countries. We could hop on a train right now and go into Frankfurt and see it. And Josh was like, I just want to go to bed. So yeah, I was kind of like, what is happening right now? Why
You've made me exhausted just recanting this whole trip. Like, I'm sitting here yawning right now. Like, I am tired. And you're wanting to go back out.
But you and Josh both were like...
We were done.
Y'all were done actually right after the salt mine. Because Josh kept saying, Beth, Josh kept saying, Mom, you're just trying to extend this. And I'm like, we can't get to the airport until like 5 p.m. I'm just
Josh
making the best of our time.
Josh and I were like, we stayed one day too long.
Not me.
If we could have flown home, if we could have got up Saturday morning and flew home, we would have been fine with that. But
I would have stayed. I think we probably needed 12 to 14 days to really do it right. But, that's just me. But yeah, so I realized my energy level was a little higher. So we did that, stayed the night in Frankfurt at that hotel, made our way to the Frankfurt airport, where Mike made best friends with a lady.
Yeah, I mean, that's me. Mr. Introvert seems to be the one that always meets people, and the people I meet are always somehow in ministry, and whether they're missionaries or something. This lady had been a missionary for a long time. They're in.
It was a small town.
Krakow.
Wasn't it above Krakow?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it was.
To the point that she ended up sitting near us, and she needed help with her bag because she had like some walking sticks. She was going to need help getting her bags down. So we were like, we'll help you get your bags. Don't worry. And at one point we're flying, and I make a joke because we stood up to go to the bathroom, and I was like, oh, we just came back here to see you. And the flight attendants thought they thought she was our relative, that we were all traveling together.
Her and I were literally the last 2 people off the plane.
Because you had to help her get her
Because I had
stuff.
to help her with their bag.
Yeah.
And the flight attendant was like, she said something about me being with her. I was like, I just met this woman.
Yeah.
And she's like, you don't know her? And I'm like, no. And this lady's like bossing me around, like, hey, grab that bag right there for me. Get this for me. Get it.
You felt right at home. She's just like us.
I know.
Yeah. It was like,
but she was super nice.
We got her information and stuff so we can email her. She was great. She was coming back to the States for a little while, and then we'll be going back to Poland. And then we made it back to the U.S. and we were pretty exhausted.
I'm still exhausted. I don't know if I've recovered, and that's been weeks.
But I must say, out of this trip, I guess I could share the itinerary, but nobody needs it if they listen to these podcasts. But I mean, y'all would do it again, right?
Yeah, it was 3 great countries. I would recommend every one of them.
Yeah. And I think for the most part, everything we did was pretty awesome. I don't know that there's much more, like, we don't have regrets. Like, it's not like something we're like, wow, that was a wasted day or anything. So
yeah, I think we maximized everything. I think it was near perfect.
Yeah, I guess I would say to most people, only warning is, if you ever want to do a trip like this with me, you probably need to specify if you want it to be a, quote, relaxing vacation. Because as my friend Marissa said to someone one time, she sent someone a note that was with me, like, if you're intending to have a nice relaxing vacation, you picked the wrong person to travel with. Saying that I was the wrong one. I can relax, but we just need to have that out there up front that's what
you
it's
don't
for.
go to a place like this and relax.
Yeah, this is a place you're going to see.
You're going to go see and do.
Yeah.
If you want to relax in the States,
you go to a beach or the mountains
Jamaica,
that you've been
go to Cancun.
I was just thinking, go to the mountains here in North
somewhere
Carolina.
where there ain't nothing to do.
Just go.
Except
chill.
Put your feet in the sand and drink.
Yeah.
And look at the water.
And eat food. And exactly. But but it was great.
Yeah.
And so we thank you all for hanging with us and listening.
Yeah. And if you have not looked at or listened to the other 2 podcasts, you can catch up on that. Other than that, thank you so much for being part of this travel trilogy. we are planning a trip to Roatan.
We're doing a mission trip.
We're doing a mission trip. So that'll be our next one coming up sometime in August. We'll do that podcast once we get back from our trip and let you guys know.
And if anyone out of our 5 listeners wants to let me be a travel influencer for you, I will do it. You just have to know up front that I will honestly say what I think. But yes, we're looking for sponsors to take us places.
Yeah, I'll take anything.
Or to send us food to try.
I'll take a bag of peanut M&Ms.
Or products to try. Yeah, we're like, last little thing, I saw somebody when I had to travel for work. We'll talk about that another time. But I had to speak at a work conference, and I saw someone that I hadn't seen in a while. And she's like, "Oh, are you still working at the same place?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I didn't know with everything you have going on with your church and the Hope Center and your podcast." And I was like, yeah, those things are like the opposite. They're not bringing money into us. They tend to just take money out from us, or whatever. But anyway, it's just funny because I guess we seem like we're making it with the podcast.
Yeah. So if you somehow have enjoyed just Beth and I yapping, we do have a weekly podcast. It comes out every Saturday morning. Usually we just talk life. Things that are going on. Beth just got back from a trip to Portland. We're going to be talking about
Oregon, not Maine. Yes. Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. We'll be talking about that on our next podcast. I just got back from a mission trip to Elizabeth City, North Carolina.
And they could hear about group work camps. They could hear about that on
another. And then there's just all kinds of little nuggets that have happened to us over the last couple of weeks. And so we're going to be yapping about that. So if that's something that interests you, feel free to join us
and follow us and stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're on the Facebook, where everywhere a podcast could be listened to.
You should do a survey, like, where should Mike and Beth go next? And then that will, help me
I'm afraid to see what people will say.
I know. They may be like,
I've had people tell me where to go.
I was going to say, they may be like, will you go there and not come back, please? Or go there and don't report on it.
Yes.
Yes, anyway. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Till next time. See you later.